This is question 28 from section 1 of the 2016 TSA paper. And in this question we're asked which of the options could be drawn as a conclusion from the passage. So let's look at this passage. First it says it looks as if lead poisoning could be a major cause of the rise and fall of violent crime. So this is just a factual statement summarising some of the facts that are to come. It says lead is so toxic it's unsafe at any level. It's been banned in Europe from many products since the 1990s. Again, a factual statement. Next, lead poisoning in infancy, even at low levels, impairs development in parts of the brain that regulate behaviour and mood. So again, this is just reporting facts. Next it says the effect is stronger in boys and girls. Again, a fact. Then lead poisoning is associated with attention deficit disorder, impulsiveness, aggression and possibly psychopathy. And then the last two sentences say that studies across cities, states and nations show that the changes in violent crime follow the lead exposure with a 20-year lag. So that means, say, if the lead exposure decreases, then 20 years later violent crime will decrease and vice versa. And it says virtually all studies report this correlation. So all of these are factual statements. So that means what we're looking to do is to draw a factual conclusion from these, something that just follows from this evidence. So let's look at the options and see which of them achieves that. So here are my 5 options. I'll zoom in a second. But we're just going to divide them between the ones that go beyond the evidence and the ones that do actually follow from the evidence. And hopefully there's just one that follows and that will be the answer. So first let's look at A. A says that European countries could expect to see a fall in violent crime soon. Does that follow from the evidence? Well, let's look at what it says about Europe. It says lead was banned there in the 90s. Why might we see violent crime drop soon? Well, bear in mind that this is from 2016. So if we think about what it says about the link between violent crime and lead exposure in infants, it says that it follows 20 years after. So 20 years after the 90s would be the 2010s, so 2016 would be about that time. And that means we'd be expecting a drop in violent crime among people who would have been exposed in the 90s to be in their 20s now, which means if they're of the right age to potentially commit violent crimes. So it looks like this does follow. Because Europe banned lead in some products 20 years ago, fewer children will have been exposed, and so fewer of them will commit violent crimes. There will be, we expect from the evidence, a drop in violent crime. So it looks like A is actually going to be something that follows from the evidence. So that's probably going to be the answer, but we'll check the other options just in case. B says that we can discount other causes of violent crime like poor social conditions and drugs. Is that something that follows from the evidence? Well, the evidence says that lead exposure is the major cause of violent crime, but that doesn't mean that there are no other causes. Well, in particular it says lead exposure is the major cause of changes in violent crime. But still, if we're looking at any individual, whether or not they go on to commit violent crime as a result of their exposure to lead could still depend on social conditions and drugs. It's only changes in the relative levels of violent crime that are altered by lead exposure. And even if lead exposure were the main cause, there could still be minor causes. So B definitely goes beyond the evidence. Now let's look at C. C says that if lead is banned in petrol and paint across the world, there will be almost no violent crime. Well, almost none is a very strong claim. And in particular, we only know that lead is connected to changes in violent crime, not that, for a similar reason to B, not that there aren't other possible causes. So C is going too far. So it goes beyond the evidence. Let's look at D. D says that countries with less commitment to safety standards will be reluctant to ban lead. So nothing in the evidence has talked about the relative safety standards of countries. And therefore this is talking about stuff that goes beyond the evidence. So we'll put that in this section. And then lastly, E says that boys who are exposed to lead in infancy are highly likely to go on to commit violent crime in their 20s. Well, highly likely is quite a strong claim. And again, this is something that isn't really said in the evidence. It only says that lead is associated with, for instance, ADD, impulsiveness and aggression, and that changes in crime follow changes in lead exposure, but not that any particular boy who is exposed to lead will be likely to commit violent crimes. It could still be a small proportion of boys who go on to commit crimes. So that means E also goes beyond the evidence, and therefore our answer here is A.